do you go from starting a nonprofit with nothing to becoming its full-time CEO to scaling to serve 150,000 people in your community? How do you work with your board of directors to determine your salary as an executive director, to educate the community on a lesser known issue, and then to grow and expand your operations across a state? In this video, I'm excited to share more of my interview with the nonprofit founder and executive director of the Diaper Bank of North Carolina, Michelle Schaefer-Old. We'll talk fully about her humble beginnings, fundraising efforts, typical expenses in her nonprofit, and her journey to become the organization's first full-time executive director after hearing about a need in her community and deciding to take action. A journey that I know several of you watching are on as well. Plus, I have a special goodie for you, a download that talks all about the difference between board and staff responsibilities and roles in a nonprofit. Super helpful topic, inspired by my conversation with Michelle. So you can grab that download at the link below this video anytime. And as always, please check out my website, changemakercafe.com, where I have so many more resources and tools for people like you out there making an impact through nonprofits, social entrepreneurship, and more. Okay, let's jump right in and hear from Michelle all about the issue that she's tackling in her community, diaper need, and her nonprofit founder's journey. How did you first learn that people needed diapers?
Yeah, so I actually read an article, and it did not mention diaper banks at all. Diaper banks really were not a thing that people talked about 11 years ago. But the article talked about how WIC and food stamps did not cover diapers. And I just thought that was interesting. And then my son came to us at a day old, and he was very, very sick for the first year and a half. And he was in the hospital 3 to 5 times a month for something as simple as a diaper rash. And we were changing his diaper 20 to 30 times a day. And I had the great honor of meeting his birth mom, and I knew that she could not afford what we were affording, and yet he was still so sick. And I started to think about what would she have done, and what do families do if they can't afford this most essential item? And I became obsessed. I could not stop thinking about it. And that's when I started to do research. And at the time I didn't know what to call it. I just put in diapers, providing diapers, and there were very small amount of diaper banks in the country. And I just started to look at them and to see if it was something that I could make happen in my community. And also I wanted to see if someone is already doing the work, because if they were already doing the work in my community, I didn't want to add on another program. I wanted to support a program to make it successful. And no one was doing it. In fact, when I started talking about a diaper bank, everyone was like, "What's a diaper bank?" And I was like, I have no idea, but I'm going to figure it out. So I started stalking the ones that were out there, and I picked out pieces that I really loved, and I added pieces that I thought were important. My background's in social work, so I understood about really helping families, and that's how it began.
People come to nonprofit work from all sorts of backgrounds. You know, I met someone who came at it from an advertising degree. We've talked about social work being a good lead-in. If you're someone who's thinking of starting a nonprofit or even getting a job in nonprofit work, what are some types of training or education that might be helpful?
Like you said, I think you can come at it at many different ways. I happen to have a degree in social work, but I really wasn't on this side of social work. I worked in the violence against women field and did that for over 20 years and did work in human trafficking, and then realized that I didn't feel like the world was safe anymore, and I needed to change my career and do something else and reframe my mind and how I thought about this work. But I think I know a lot of amazing leaders that started out as a volunteer and do not have a degree, and they still do amazing work in their communities. And so I believe that it's passion, it's an understanding about the need, whatever it may be, and it's a willingness to advocate for that need and do it in a passionate way. I think that a degree is nice as you try to enhance that and grow and do the things, but there's a lot of classes that you can take out there that foundations offer for free. There's a lot of information on the internet now that used to not be the case.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that there's one path that you have to take, but I do think that, and I still do this today, is I am constantly seeking more information about how I can do things better, how I can make sure that we're really grounded in our mission, how I can make sure that I tell the story, becoming a good storyteller of the families that we serve. And so that did not come naturally to me, and I had to do a lot of research around that and figure that out.
The thing that I am hearing as the most important from you and from others too is that clear understanding of the need, right? You've got to understand the people you're serving.
That's right.
Just like in a business, if you're going to start a business, you have to know your customers' pain points. It's the same for nonprofits. You've got to know your community's pain points and who's already out there doing the work too.
That's right. And I also think it's important that we do not see ourselves as a savior in any way. I happen to just be very good at getting product in and out and distributing them through organizations that are doing really great work with families. And I am not a savior. I am not here to fix everyone. I'm here to meet families where they are and make sure that they have access to the most basic needs. And so sometimes we can get caught up in a kind of a savior complex, and it's really important to know that that's not our job. And it's also not our job to judge those that we're serving, to make sure that we really understand that there's a lot of reasons of why families get in the situations that they're in, and supporting them where they are is very, very important.
I think it's hard to clearly see the need and to be a good partner to the people that you're serving if you're also judging them at the same time.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. And so coming at it at a very neutral space, and anytime we start a new program, we are talking to the families that it's going to impact. And we make sure that they are leading us and they are guiding us. And we're not coming in and saying, we think you need this. This is what we do, and is there a way we can support you? And how can we do it better? And that has really shifted the way we do our work and start any program in the state. And when we work with multiple counties, we do not assume that works in one county will work in the next county. We have conversations, and we're meeting that county where it's at and the families where they're at.
So you went from nothing, doing this in your kitchen, to serving tens of thousands of people every year in a warehouse, a large warehouse, multiple warehouses, in fact. If you've seen our past video on the warehouse that we did together. What are some of the top expenses that are involved in this operation back when you were starting? And then how did that evolve up to today?
So we had zero budget when I started.
That's common.
And I remember getting my first $1,000 check, and I even had my daughter take a picture with it because we were so excited. And I thought, I can spend so much money and get all these things. Like, I got a little printer, and I got a a rolling jack so I could roll things around from my car to my door, and diapers, right? And so I just thought I was living large with that $1,000.
Your first supply cart.
Yes. But it has changed significantly. Our budget is around $3 million right now. Majority is for product. And COVID, of course, has changed the world. We're not alone in that. And so our budget for product before COVID was $65,000 a year.
Wow.
It's now $900,000 a year.
Is that in kind?
That is how much
purchasing.
It costs us to purchase products and do the work that we're doing. That's just products across the board. So it's just changed. The landscape has changed in terms of how we do this work. If I were to break it down in terms of what our budget focuses on, it's majority products, which is diapers, period products, adult incontinence supplies, and formula. And then then it would be warehousing, because we have to have the space to move those products around. And then it's staffing. And when I first began, it was I didn't make a full paycheck. I was paying people a little bit here or there. It was embarrassing how much I paid people. But then over the last couple of years, we felt like it's really, really important that we're paying living wages, and that we are making our organization sustainable by making sure that our staff is being paid, our CEO is being paid, and that we're doing the things we need to do to keep doing our work. And so it's been quite a shift for us to do that. And most of our donations, our funding comes from donations, individual donations, and then grants. And then we do have a couple of federal funds, but those are tied to small parts of the state, and they do not go on from year to year. So we do not really rely on any of that. We mostly say that that's a bonus for us to serve those regions when we can. And we really rely heavily on donations and grants to do the work that we do. We need to diversify that, though, better.
Okay.
And we need to have more balanced funding streams. But I also think that we need to be better at thanking our individual donors more than we do. And this is something that I think we've been so busy in our work, almost with our head down, of how do we get that next diaper out? How do we serve families, that we haven't really looked up and said, who is supporting this work? And how do we let them know the impact that they're having in the work that we do? And so we've implemented some new things to try to do that, because they've already shown us that they care about our work by making that donation. And it's much easier to turn that into a recurring donation than to try to find a new donor. And so we are actively seeking ways of doing that internally.
What would you say the ratio is? So you said it's mostly individual donations, grants, and then some minor federal grants. What's the ratio of the funding there?
It is about 60% grants and about 38% individual donations, and then the federal funding.
The 2%.
That will go away. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And, I've talked about this in past videos, but not every nonprofit is the best fit for a high grant ratio. This is an example of an organization for which that is the case.
Yeah, because we're talking about basic needs.
Right.
And we also, a lot of times, grants want to see partnerships, and we distribute all of our products through organizations already working with families. And so the thing I will say about grants is we are successful for a couple of reasons. One is we figured out our messaging. We know exactly how to talk about the need, and it's not like it's not like food insecurity where people just get it. We have to educate in every single grant we write. But we've become really great at that and doing it in the character limits that they allow us to do that.
That's the worst.
Yes. And the second thing I will say that is important and that we stand by is we do not mission creep. We will not create a program just to get funding, ever. We are grounded in our mission. And this is extremely important because that money seems appealing, but then it ends and you have to continue doing that program because it's not fair of a nonprofit to make a promise to a community and then pull away. The third thing that I think is really important is that we have figured out how to track outcomes. So there's outputs, which is how many bottoms we cover, and the soft stories and lovely stories of how that impacted a family's life. But we also look at data and numbers. And we worked with a researcher to help us identify outcomes. So not only do we know that we give out 600,000 diapers a month, but we also know that 76% of those families say that when they get diapers from us, they can purchase food.
Oh, wow.
68% says that when they get diapers from us, they can go to work. Others say that they can buy medicine. We also have outcomes from our community partners saying that we've increased immunizations because we call families and say, your child's up for vaccines and we have diapers. Do you want to stop by? And so really it's looking at those outcomes and telling a bigger story about diapers, just giving out a simple diaper. It's much more than that.
I feel like if I were a grant funder, I would give to that. Oh, good job.
Thank you.
So you started this organization in 2013.
That's right.
From that point forward, how many years did it take you to go from that nonprofit founder unpaid position to a paid executive director?
So it took some time. I started out as a passionate volunteer of my own organization with the title of executive director, but I wasn't being paid, working way over 60 hours a week.
Oh my gosh.
Definitely a labor of love. And it took about 2 years to where we felt stable enough to allow myself to get paid a little bit each month. And it was like $400 a month, which is embarrassing, but that's what I felt like our budget could sustain long term and that we could grow from. And then we hired another part-time person, and that's when we started to see my salary go up. And then, as a founder and it being a labor of love and also privilege, right? I was privileged enough to not have to take a full pay. So that's something to keep in mind is that I was in the position where I did not have to be fully paid. That of course switched when my family situation switched, and then I became the sole breadwinner. That we started to write more grants and get more funds for a salary, where before all of our grants were for product and warehousing, and so it shifted. And then I had a really wise board member come to me. And they said that if we are ever going to make the Diaper Bank of North Carolina successful and sustainable, we have to ask ourselves, how much could we pay someone to do Michelle's job if she moved out of state?
That's right.
And we realized that no one was crazy enough to do it for as amount I was being paid for. And so that's when we definitely made a shift. Now, we're in 11 years. I'm still not making what an ED would make at 11 years, a statewide nonprofit, but I feel very comfortable with what I'm making. And at the same time, we now are a staff of 11. We're statewide, and we're paying our staff a living wage. And so I think that has been more important to me than to increase my pay to where I think it needs to be. But I make a living wage, I take care of 3 kids on it, and it just takes time. It takes a lot of time, and it takes work by the ED and the board.
That's right.
Working together. It's not just the ED's role to procure those funds to make the diaper bank or the nonprofit self-sustaining. It's a collaborative effort.
And Michelle's being a little humble, but I want to point out that what she was saying before was if something ever happened to her, you need to make sure that you're paying enough for the CEO or executive director position so that you can actually attract someone competent who can take the position, right? So think about that. I know as founders we think about, oh, well, we'll never leave the organization, but even if that's true, something could happen to you, and if you want the organization to live on, you've got to be compensating your leadership and your staff sufficiently to allow for that sustainability and that succession.
I think it's also important to note is that so much of the focus seems to be put on the founder when they find something and my story is compelling and I created this thing, but it is not successful unless it carries on beyond me. And so it at some point can no longer be the founder's story. It has to be the mission of the Diaper Bank story and the importance of the work and how grounded we are in the work that we're doing and our mission and our outcomes and the families that we serve. That is where the focus needs to be shifted. So it's so important that the things that are put into place, salaries and budgets, are all done with forward thinking of where the diaper bank needs to be and how can we sustain this long term for the community as long as the community needs it.
And systems, training your people so that, and having the training systems in place to train more people.
That's right.
So you're building that pipeline of leadership.
And you're writing a standard operation of everything. Right? If you create a program, what are the steps that it took to create that program so that anyone can step in and continue the work, because it is important work. It's not about the person that founded it. It's about the need in the community.
That's right. The board of directors is your boss. It's the boss of all executive directors out there in the United States. Tell me a little bit more about how you work with your board. How do you successfully collaborate on some of the things that come up to include tough questions, salary, etc.? Yeah.
I feel that information is really important, that they have all the information that they need to make a decision and come to the same conclusion that I hope that I have come to, which is we need to give certain people a raise, or I need a raise, or this is the program we need to take on. It's easy for us because we are so grounded in our mission, and that doesn't really change for us. So I actually look at the board this way. They are more like the lighthouse. They're shining a light and they're saying, this is what our budget is. This is what we're focused on. This is the parameters that you have. And then I'm the captain of the ship. I drive the ship within those parameters. And that has worked really well. So making sure your board understands their role. When they start with a diaper bank, they actually get a sheet that talks about the different things that come up in nonprofits, and it's what's the ED's responsibility, what's the staff's responsibility, and what the board's responsibility is. And so that is really important that they understand that. But also keeping them up to date on successes. I'm constantly sending them, this was a banner month. This is all that we've accomplished, so that I keep that ahead of them so that they feel like they're part of the work that we're doing. And in terms of negotiating pay, it's really all based on the budget that we set, and being really conservative in terms of, I know that this is what we're going to get, and a raise aligns with what that budget is and what we're going to make. And so the ED having a really good, strong knowledge of where you are as an organization, what you know will be coming in, what you know you can get, which is hard. It's tricky, especially when you're a new ED, figuring that out. But you can start to see patterns every year that you can build on, and I think that helps in having these tough conversations with board.
And if you want Michelle's one-pager on the differentiation between executive director and board roles that helps keep her board and her organized together, check out the information below this video. There's a chance for you to download it. If people are out there thinking about how they're going to start a nonprofit, or maybe they've already done it and they're working on growing it, what are some tips you have in general about the journey?
If you had told me 11 years ago that the Diaper Bank of North Carolina would be where it's at today, we've distributed 27 million diapers, 3 million period products, we have 4 warehouses, I drive a forklift, I would have said absolutely no way is that possible. I cannot do that. And many times I think that women, leaders especially, get in their own way. And they think, well, I don't know how to write grants or public speak, so I can't start this program. I would say that what I've become very good at is I still don't know everything. There's still things and aspects of this organization that I cannot do well. But I have surrounded myself with people that can do those things well. And really knowing where your strengths are and your weaknesses are, and then surrounding yourself with those that can help you do the work that you want to do, I think is really important. So not getting in your own way, not letting imposter syndrome take over, which is a real thing that I experience all the time, and making sure that I am moving forward, right? And sometimes you can just stop yourself and just keep moving forward and keep being passionate about what I'm doing. And I think that's really important. Knowing the right questions to ask. If you have nonprofits that are similar to yours, in other areas, stalk them. See what they do really well. I stalk so many other diaper banks. I have little pieces of everything. And then I make it my own. And so I also encourage other diaper banks to stock ours, because I just want to end diaper need. And the only way to move that needle is if we're working together to make that happen. And so figuring out what's out there, pulling pieces that you love, gathering those experts around you, and the volunteers that are engaged in your work, creating core volunteers to help you do your work. I think all of that can help you be successful at any nonprofit that you start.
How can people support the Diaper Bank?
Well, if you're in North Carolina, you can volunteer, you can make a donation, you can, we have an Amazon wish list of all our greatest needs, and you can send a box of diapers our way. I would say that if you're outside of North Carolina, finding another program in your community that's doing this work around basic needs is so important. Granted, I would love diapers sent to me from all over the place, but I think that there's a lot of good work doing, and there is not a community in the United States that isn't dealing with lack of hygiene items, not one. And so finding that program that's meeting that need and supporting them, I think is going to help us move the needle on diaper need. And so, yes, if you're in North Carolina, come and volunteer. That's one of the surprising things about starting this organization is I did not realize that I would get to witness the generosity of people every single day. We have 800 volunteers a month that come through these doors to help us do this work, and I get to be a part of that, and that's powerful. So find that program in your community and volunteer your time and make a difference.
You heard it, folks. Do it. Michelle is such a cool nonprofit founder. I'm curious, what were the main takeaways that you got from listening to her story and her journey share in the comments below. And of course, like I said before, check out my website, changemakercafe.com, where I have all sorts of resources on social impact and nonprofit work organized for you that I hope you take advantage of. Go check those out. And our newsletter, also Changemaker Mondays, where I send out tips and strategies every week on fundraising and recruiting volunteers and mobilizing your community, and also some funding opportunities that I come across. You don't want to miss that. You can subscribe to that newsletter at the link below this video as well. That's all I have for you today. I'm Amber Melanie Smith, and I will see you next time.